We talked about this new opera at the Chicago Lyric Opera a bit last week. It's entitled Blue. And from this WBEZ preview of said opera, the title of that story, The Star of Blue, a new opera about police misconduct. Says the role is personal. Opera about police misconduct. And then you go through the write-up, and it includes an interview with the star, Trevon Walker. And you get a flavor of certainly the thinking of the artist, and perhaps a little bit of an understanding of what kind of story you're going to get. And he responds in this Q&A at BEZ about contemporary stories on the opera stage that we don't always see from a black perspective. That was the nature of the question. And he responds, Trevon Walker, it's important for people to see this. I think it's really empowering for me to be able to share this experience with people because it's something that I personally relate to. It's something that I know and I experience in my daily life. I've had these conversations with family members. I've had my mom sit me down when I was 16 and I got my driver's license, and she told me, if you ever get stopped by the police, this is what you have to do. You can't be disrespectful. And I think this is an experience that is unique to a lot of people, and I think it's really important that we show that to the general mass of opera goers. The backdrop of the story is a black kid is shot by police. And then this couplet from a duet that Trevon Walker, who plays the son, does with his father, who's a police officer. I'm quoting the couplet. This was included in the BZ piece. You're a black boy, a moving target. That's what the father sings. And the son sings, I'm an endangered species. I'm a black man brought into this world as white people's fodder for labor and for sport. We go so far, but no further. And remember, this is Trevon Walker at the Chicago Lyric Opera, who is saying about this story, it's something that I know and experience in my daily life. So you sort of lost me at the preview, given what the artist himself said and an example of the artistry to be offered. In fact, I tweeted it out. The Lyric Opera disgraced itself during COVID, which it did. Its descent continues with this cultural disinformation. Blue is the kind of banal political direct that mischaracterizes through caricature one person's lived experience, quote unquote, as an entire group's. It's the sort of cut-and-paste sentimental pap that has degraded Chicago's theatrical venues. And I was surprised how much feedback I got, including from former devotees to the Lyric Opera and the Chicago theater scene, as I was. But Chris Jones, who's the editorial page editor of the Chicago Tribune and an art critic himself, he responded, Dan, you are not right here. It's a very even-handed piece focused on how parents worry. It does not pertain to have answers, nor is it sentimental. I was deeply moved by it. I think you would be too. And he published a review of this as well, of the play, in which he gave it 4 stars. So, okay, when we have a disagreement. So let's chat about it. Won't that be fun? Let's do that right now. Chris Jones is the editorial page editor of the Chicago Tribune and chief theater critic. He's also a Broadway critic for the New York Daily News and author of Rise Up, Broadway and American Society from Angels in America to Hamilton. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Nice to talk to you. Good
to talk to you. So, I read your review of Blue, so I get your perspective. But that couplet from the father and son duet, how am I to understand that? If what you suggest in your piece, in your tweet, that this was an even-handed distillation of the issue that wasn't intended to have answers. It seems like it has a particular answer, and the focus is on structural racism, which is hardly new or novel or, frankly, to me, particularly interesting.
Well, I take that point, but I think this opera, so the opera is about, for me, the fear that parents feel when their kids go out of the house And it's true that the opera is specifically dealing with what black parents feel. But I think it's a situation where people on all sides of the political spectrum can understand, the worry. And I'm a parent myself, and I understand the worry that people feel when their teenager, who you don't know what they're going to get into, leave the house and start to, just start to go off and might be in harm's way, whether it's, whatever kind of trouble they may get into. So the main character is a cop himself, and you see him with his pals. It's set in New York City, so you see him with his pals, kind of talking about what it's like to have a son, and then you see the mom with her gal pals doing sort of much the same thing, worrying about him. And I don't think the BZ piece was correct. I don't think it's a piece about police violence at the end of the day. I think it's a piece about parental fear, and I think you could apply that to any aspect of our big city. When you look at, for example, what happened, on the Magnificent Mile this weekend, when there was clearly a lot of things to worry about if you were a parent and your kid was down there. And I think this opera is tapping into that. And I guess I didn't see it as an especially political piece. I don't dispute for a sec that it got characterized that way, but I didn't feel that. I thought it was kind of a piece about being a dad, and
Okay.
that's how I felt about it, Dan.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting just because, again, Trevone Walker, in his own words, sort of talks about this from that perspective. I mean, the implication, the implication at the beginning, even though they don't, as you include in your review, they don't get into responsibility. This black kid who's shot and killed by police. They don't get into the circumstances, but the implication is, you're supposed to sort of default to the established narrative of police, black kid. It's a race thing. Black people are treated differently by police and so forth. I mean, and it's just, to compare it to, for example, what happened on the Mag Mile this weekend. Well, that would actually be interesting to talk about the lawlessness as opposed to law enforcement as the, as always the heavy in these stories. That's, to me, what just struck me as so cliched.
Well, I think, not to make a kind of weaselly centrist point here, but I think the way that we can come together a bit in Chicago is understanding that it's both of those things, right? That's what these families are worrying about. They're just worrying for their kids. And I think that you're right, that is, the thing that happened this weekend is, you hear less about that. People don't make operas about that in the way they make them about what we're talking about today. But for me, it's about it's about the human sort of, the human sort of fear. In this opera, for example, you never see the incident. So you don't know who shot who, who came first, who's to blame. You don't know any of that. It's not really about that. It's more about this kind of sense of urban alienation, if you like. And I don't know. I think feeling empathy for families in that scenario is not a bad thing. That would be my honest, view. And I don't think that's a particularly political point.
No, I feel empathy for people that are general victims of the disorder and the violence, and there's no question. And that begins with minority families, since most of the violence is in majority minority neighborhoods in Chicago and a lot of big cities. So there's no question. But I mean, it seems to me like the interesting art, the interesting contribution the art community could make, and I'm not here to tell people what kind of art to make. You make whatever you want. I'm just saying it's uninteresting to me if you just do this over and over again, where the institution is the self-inflicted violence. It's the endemic nature of it, where police are largely there to sort of clean up the results of the violence, and instead it's always sort of using police as the way past it. It's always sort of conjuring up America 2024 is still basically Selma 1963, and it's just over and over again. Let me ask you another question about this, just like writ large, beyond Blue. So I mean, David Mamet, I think we can all agree, greatest living American playwright.
No argument here. Yeah.
Okay, so the play, this is very much like talking to Mel Brooks about making Blazing Saddles. Could you make it today? No. Could David Mamet? I don't know if you saw it, but could you? I saw it at the Goodman 15 years ago. Could he make the play Race? Could he make the play Race today?
100% not. Nobody would produce it. I
Right.
mean, it's virtually impossible to get a David Mamet production on in Chicago because he's been largely kind of blacklisted by the establishment American theater, and I think that's a great shame. I think he wrote some great plays, and I think his great plays are the ones he wrote while he lived in Chicago. They'd be plays like American Buffalo and Glengarry Glen Ross,
Right.
Sexual Perversity in Chicago. These are great plays. He's a great writer. He's a conservative writer. There's no question about that, right? But that doesn't mean that he shouldn't be produced. That doesn't mean that he's not a great writer or a great artist. And I think in his hometown, it's been a blind spot of the Chicago theater not to produce Mamet. Now, a lot of people disagree with that. I understand they disagree with that. And, that's the situation. But a play like Race, which you're right, would not get done today, very provocative, very well written, actually quite prescient. Like a lot of what Mamet wrote early on anticipated a lot of the stuff that worries you. It really did. I mean, he was writing about stuff that you're talking about on this station now. He was writing about a lot of that stuff quite a long time ago. So, I think I like to see as, he can be a bit of a grumpy old man, as you probably know. He can.
Yeah.
He just wrote a piece for us, actually, like a week or two ago about Chicago, and he had very good points. But it was such a, downer, and you were like, oh, it's not quite as bad as you might be thinking, So he's a bit that way, but he's a great guy, and he's a fun guy, and he's a great writer, and he should be produced.
The thing about Race back then too. I mean, the cast was at least on the Broadway version. I don't think they.
Terry Washington, right?
Terry Washington, David Allen Greer, and then David Allen Greer was replaced by Dennis Haysbert. I mean, you had top flight actors too, and so even separating Mamet because he's a controversial figure because he doesn't share everybody's political views in the theater community, but just a play like Race couldn't get produced, even if it wasn't Mamet's name attached, if it was somebody unknown name attached. So I mean, what does that say to sort of the creativity and the thousand flowers bloom attitude that's is supposed to be the disposition of the art community? Do something interesting, do something different, challenge authority, challenge orthodoxy. None of that.
Well, I've been similarly frustrated by that. However, I would say this. I feel there's a bit of a shift going on now. I think that the nadir of that sort of attitude has, we're getting past it. And when I'm beginning, I go to the theater almost every night of my lifetime, and I watch what new plays are being done, what are people choosing to produce, and I'm beginning to see a bit of a thaw in what you're talking about. So we're now beginning to see plays that are not quite as doctrinaire, not quite as predictable, not quite as, along the same very progressive lines. We're beginning to see them. I think they're waking up a little bit to the fact that audiences don't want to be lectured to. They're waking up to the idea that you've got to go after power sometimes, and sometimes that power is people who agree with you. And I'm a little more optimistic. So I'm here to say, give it another. I don't dispute a lot of what you said, but I'm here to say give it another chance, because I think we're beginning to see some of the adults in the room begin to get their mojo back a little bit. And I think there was a period when it was rough going in the theater, especially right after COVID, very rough going. And even now, it's so hard for people to get downtown now, and people are so concerned about getting downtown. Like, I was at Annie, believe it or not, last week, right? Half a house,
Yeah.
Great production of Annie. And then I heard this weekend people were trying to get there, and they couldn't get there because the cops had all the roads closed off, and there was all this mishigas downtown. We have to invest in the loop. We have to get live entertainment going again in Chicago. it's, we've let it slip in a really big way, and that's crucial to a vibrant city that we all want to live in. And having more people on the streets creates more safety and all of that good stuff. And it's like, I don't know, it's been grim downtown, and I just feel that we need to turn the corner on it and create, more interesting work that people really want to see and that they can debate issues. And I'd like to think, I'm hoping that the theater now, does exactly what you're saying and takes on these issues so that people can talk together.
Well, I hope, I agree with everything you just said, and I hope that is the case. I hope we see a mentality shift and maybe a mea culpa here or there too to bring some people back. Otherwise, I'm not counting on it. But I'm just saying, if you're really interested in the art houses and the theaters not disintegrating like so much else has, the club scene and so much else has in Chicago, then there needs to be a little bit more self-reflection than I think has been currently demonstrated. But I'll take your optimism and hope that you turn out to be prescient as well. Chris Jones is the editorial page editor and the chief theater critic for the Tribune, Broadway critic for the New York Daily News, and author of Rise Up, Broadway and American Society, From Angels in America to Hamilton. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on this morning.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
$20 million. No, it's not the national debt. It's the buying spree at Fox Valley Coins. And it's on from now until Thanksgiving. It's really the perfect storm. Gold and silver are at historic levels. Fox Valley Coins has a huge order to fill with one of their national clients. And September through Thanksgiving is always when coin dealers stock up for Christmas sales. They are especially looking for the old collector coins like silver dollars, all 1700s through early 1900s coins. All kinds of gold, from broken jewelry to gold bars to the old coins, U.S. and foreign. All kinds of silver, from sterling silverware to old coins and bars to Franklin Mint items. They can pay cash or check and make house calls on larger deals prior to Thanksgiving. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. They'll make free, no-obligation offers. Make that 20,000,001 reasons to go to Fox Valley Coins now. They give free in-store offers on your items.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. There are so many takes on the 2024 election and